Welcome to Astridologie, the podcast that brings you knowledge, wisdom, and principles that can help you find the peace and comfort we all seek and deserve in our lives. Astridologie obviously contains my name, Astrid. And I came up with the name Astridologie because I have been interested in astrology my entire life. And it wasn't until about, I want to say, 22 years or so ago that I actually looked up what my name meant. I don't know if they recently brought meaning to it, but it used to be a small name in the dictionary. And you'd see Aster, and then you see Astrid tiny next to it. And when I found out that it meant a star, like in the solar system, it comes from the galaxy, I was blown away because from a young child, I was interested in astrology. And then coupling that with my love of reading, I've been an avid reader. I love to study. I love to learn. I'm famous for reading 5 to 6 books at once because one book can detail some information and then another book explains the same information, but you have an aha moment. And I learned early on that I have this ability to read, document, and assimilate information, maybe even difficult or complex information, and drill it down where the average person can understand it. So Astridologie is based on all these ideologies that I've studied, from the metaphysical, the spiritual, the etheric, the quacky, the psychobabble, and all of those worlds that I feel like I've brought together. But mostly Astridologie is about taking on new ideologies. So the show is about information from people, they've already done the work. I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but again, I'm a information assembler. I'm not a writer. I don't write for a living. But again, I have the ability to take what is written, what is stated, and content that's put out there and pull it together into a conversation that I find compelling and interesting and that I think people can learn and grow from. I embody what I speak about. So when I early started teaching, my students who were regular practitioners noticed that I would speak and teach about things that I was going through with them. I'm still on the path like everybody else. So Astridologie actually helps me stay in the practice, stay in the realm of possibility, and keep my vibrational frequency high, which I'll talk about a lot in the show about managing and keeping your own vibrational frequency. That's what this is all about. It's about frequency. That's what life is based on. Everything is a form of energy. And so one of my cornerstones of teaching is energy. When I left the corporate world, I've left corporate twice. But the first time I left corporate, I said, corporate has nothing to do with my spiritual world. I'm going off to be a teacher of meditation and healing, and my corporate world has nothing to do with it. Early on, I recognized that inasmuch as I believe in the surreal, the ethereal, the known, the unknown, is that I'm very practical. There is where the research part of me comes in. I have to prove it. And I am definitely a person that have lived, seeing is more believing. That's how I was raised in that generation. But the metaphysical world requires you to believe it, then you'll see it. So I feel like I do a great job of doing the surreal and all of that, the abstract side of the things that I talk about, but backing them up with fact or data or information so that people can then make a decision whether they believe it or not, or if it's something that they feel would be a helpful tool. When I think about teaching, I actually wanted to be a professional dancer. A lot of people don't know that about me. And when I was in the dance world, I had ideas about how I could do choreography. So I feel like that was the seed planting for me to, in the future, become a teacher. A teacher was born out of I've been lucky in my corporate career in that I have managed teams and people. So I noticed that I ran strong teams, that I would help people develop themselves. So in thinking about exiting corporate, I thought about what could I do next? What am I good at? And I realized that, I would always help people get to where they wanted to go. So I was like, I guess I'm kind of a good teacher. And at this time, I became very impassioned about the practice of yoga for myself as a practitioner. I would use it as a tool to manage the corporate crazy world. I traveled a lot. I had young children. So in order to cope with my own stress, again, doing the work, testing it out of myself, because I'm a cynic, I have to have proof. So it really worked in my corporate world. Meditating saved me. Practicing yoga saved me. In fact, on my calendar, I would put appointment, and that appointment would be a yoga class. And I found myself ensuring that my appointments for yoga were just as important as my other appointments of the day. And I started to see my life change from that. I have a quote by Maya Angelou that I've actually lived my life by and my work by. It's just such a simple statement, so powerful. And I came across it because of Oprah Winfrey. She was a mentor and a teacher of Oprah Winfrey's. And it says, when you learn, teach, when you get, give. I've always been a generous person personally anyway, but I thought, what a beautiful metaphor. So that set the stage for my work going forward. I've always been known to give away information for free. I've never been one to hold and try to lure people to come to the next thing, And that's been a gift in my life when you learn, teach. So I'm bursting with information. Like when I'm in the middle of studying and reading about something, I can't wait to share it. That's always been like a cornerstone. So it comes across as very authentic. The other thing that happens is one of the influences is that be prepared. Some teachers that I studied early on in the yoga world were very prepared. I could always tell the teachers who flew by the seat of their pants, because I do believe there should be an organic element to teaching. I'm going back to when I started teaching yoga, but there should also be, should have a little bit of structure. Again, there is me being practical with the mystical, I guess I would say. So I always prepared lessons. Every class that I taught for at least the first 10 years, I had a lesson. And my class became practice with a message. These messages were influenced by Oprah Winfrey, just by her spreading positivity, but also Joseph Campbell, Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson. These are people that I found on my path as my teachers. And then there are, of course, Patabi Joyce and Desica Shar from the yoga world. So I have a lot of teachers on my path, and that really influenced my style. My teacher, Bryan Kest, who inspired me to even become a teacher, he would speak during a yoga class and talk about real life things. And so a nod to him is the style, because I had never experienced yoga like Bryan Kest. Most teachers just stuck to lift your arm, lift your leg, breathe, and this is what this is doing. But he talked about philosophical things in life. And so for me, practice with a message was born. When I first started teaching, my classes were called Practice with a Message. Because again, taking a study from my own self on the mat, I noticed that I would be transported and my mind was like a sponge. So I thought, if I could bring positive messages while people were practicing in an environment where their mind was a little bit more focused, maybe I could download some information that could be helpful to them. What I enjoy most about teaching is the magic of it all. I've noticed whenever I teach, there's some force that's unexplainable. I could call it angels or guides or spirit guides or even the Holy Spirit that literally comes in and assists me. And my ego gets separated from the teaching. one of the things I enjoy is that people actually show up so that I can teach. So I've always been like blown away. I mean, I've been teaching yoga 2023, I know, because I started teaching in 2000. So I always know I'm entering 23 years when 2023 arrives. And I've always been thrilled and amazed to this day that people actually show up and want to hear what I have to say. So that's what, I guess, from an egoic standpoint, but it's from a place of humility, because I'm like, of all the choices and places and things that people could be doing, they choose to come spend their time with me. And I also enjoy just seeing people feel a shift in their mindset, their attitude, or I see the hope that comes over people's faces just by a word or a sentence or a statement that I've imparted during the class. For Astridologie, astrology will play a key role in it, because I've, again, always been interested in astrology. And I started the Moon Talks because I was always fascinated with information, again, but I was hesitant to speak on it because I'm not a professional astrologer. So again, it ties back to, if I don't feel I have enough expertise, I'm not going to speak about it. But here we were in the pandemic, and I'm sitting home, I'm studying, I'm looking at the stars, I'm looking what's going on astrologically, and it was fascinating how it tied back to what we were experiencing with the pandemic. It blew my mind. And so from there, I just said, well, I know enough to know. And I remember what my teacher, Bryan Kest, had always said. He goes, you teach what you know. Because before I became yoga, the concept of getting certified was beginning to take root. Prior to that, the transmission was teacher to student. No one's certified. There wasn't a governing body to certify you. So Bryan always said, just teach what you know, and the more you know, then continue to teach. And he said the best teacher is teaching. So I thought, I think I know a decent enough about astrology to begin these moon talks. So it was a way to keep me engaged with the public. You know, we were isolated. I was pretty isolated. My sons lived, you know, in their respective places. So it was born out of me staying connected to the world. And it was about something that I'm very passionate and loved. And so I made a commitment every new moon, every full moon. And I called them Moonology, or I called it Moon Talks with Astrid. And right away, people were very receptive to it because, again, I just didn't talk about the mundane. I tied it back to life and personality. So I think I did a really good job of, again, being able to inspire people and talk to them about what was going on energetically. So Moon Talks will definitely be a big part, play a big role and part of Astridologie, because for me, Astridologie was born of me being a child of the constellation, you know, my name and everything like that. My name means of the stars, so it's just like, how can I not talk about the stars? But honestly, people really enjoyed it, and when I stopped doing the Moon Talks, I got quite a bit of feedback. What happened? Where are you? We haven't seen you. So I will definitely be bringing Moon Talks as part of Astridologie. Within astrology, one of the other sides of it is numerology. And I became fascinated with numerology, and I believe it's because of Kabbalah. So Kabbalah is another kind of spiritual tradition from the Hebrew tradition. And I always understood that numbers had power, but it blew my mind that the Hebrew alphabet is based all on numerology. So again, I started studying numbers, and finding out that, you know, numerology does tie back to astrology, because the day and the month and the year that something occurs is very pivotal in astrology. So numerology also will play a big part in Astridologie. And because I think numerology is conceptually easier to grasp than astrology, so during my Moon Talks, I would talk about numerology always. That was always a piece of astrology because I believe they go hand in hand. I'd love for the listener to take away just a pearl of wisdom. You know, I've attended a lot of workshops and retreats. I love to learn. I'm so interested in the mind and how the mind gets developed. And I've learned that, like when I've attended a workshop or retreat myself or taken a course or class, if I can take away one word or one sentence or one way of viewing things that I had never thought of before, it wasn't a waste. And honestly, that's what I hope for. Every time I speak and I talk about a subject, if people can take one thing away from it, then I think I've done what I've set out to do, and that's to help people find another tool, another perspective, and another way to navigate through their lives. Thank you for listening to Astridologie. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support the podcast, please hit the subscribe button and tell your friends about it by sharing this program on social media. You can also follow me on Instagram at Coda Life Goddess or at codalife.com. Coda is COTA, Coda Life Goddess or codalife.com. Thank you again for listening to Astridologie, and I'll see you next time.